Hi everyone, I hope you enjoyed that vlog where I go to Higginbothams bookstore and take you around, show you what's on the aisles. And also there was this really exciting Manga Festival, so I got to show you glimpses of that. I didn't pick up too many books, however, in Higginbothams because I later went to Hive, which ended up being a ball. I picked up 4 books at Hive and I got them each at 20% discount because they have that on all new titles. So that was great. And I'm going to talk about all the books I ended up picking up on this little bookshop visit. The first book I picked up was Yellowface. That's right. So I finally gave in to all the hype on social media and decided to pick up Yellowface by R.F. Kuang, who is literally a fantasy novelist, but I have not read any of her books. I know she's also written Babel, which is Dark Academia, but I haven't read that yet. Yellowface is a very interesting book, and from all the discussions on social media, I know one thing for sure before getting into this, and that is that the narrator is extremely annoying. And I'm not one who generally reads and tolerates books like this, but I'm going to make an exception and try and read this one. Yellowface is about a lady who is an aspiring novelist, but she's not doing really well at all, and she's struggling. Her name is June Hayward, and she ends up impersonating another author. She witnesses a freak accident where this person dies, and this person is of Chinese origin, but she's American, and she's also an aspiring writer. And what happens is, after her friend dies, June decides to take upon the task of editing her incomplete manuscript about the history of Chinese laborers during the Second World War. And what June does is definitely unethical, but we explore the mind of this person, what are her motivations behind doing that. And basically she later goes on to kind of publish the novel under a false Chinese sounding name, which is again very unethical, and gets away with it. The novel becomes a New York Times bestseller, but then she gets a lot of backlash on Twitter and other social media, which she has to later deal with. So essentially, that's what Yellowface is all about. So I'm really interested to read this and understand how the author kind of wrote this. There's a bit of metafiction as well. So something I'm really looking forward to doing. And ultimately, this deserves to be on my bookshelf. So I definitely picked up Yellowface. I know I had kept this back that I wouldn't be buying more books, but amazing books are being published every year and I have to be able to consume them in some form or the other. So I made an exception this time, and I'll probably be passing these on after I've read them. So it's not essentially a bad thing. But you guys are my accountability partners, and I am really happy that you're taking the role seriously, as some of you have already pointed out to me that I shouldn't be buying any more books. Nevertheless, this is what I got from Higginbothams. Right. So the second book I picked up at Hive, which has a fantastic collection of novels and is very up to date with, what are the books that are currently doing the rounds on social and things like that. So I went in and I picked up Gone Girl, Gillian Flynn, because I really enjoy Gillian Flynn's writing. I previously really devoured Grown Up, and I also enjoyed reading Dark Places. I am yet to read Sharp Objects, which I'm halfway through, but I decided to pick up Gone Girl because everybody has asked me to read this book, and I still haven't watched the movie either, so I decided I will pick this up finally. Gone Girl is about Nick Dunn, who is married to a lady called Amy, who suddenly disappears on their 5th wedding anniversary, and Nick is accused of having murdered his wife, and Nick has he has nothing to do with it. But then he gets persistent phone calls, and then he gets emails that become evidence for the police that point towards him having murdered his wife. So this is all about that. It's crime, it's thriller, it's mystery, and it's dark. So I'm really excited to read this, especially given that we are in the fag end of the year, and it's a really good time to pick up a crime thriller. The next book I was so happy to see in Hive because I first heard about this book about 7 years ago when I first started watching booktube videos. And the book in question is Memoirs of a Polar Bear by Yoko Tawada. Now, Yoko Tawada is actually a Japanese writer born in Germany. So she writes in both Japanese and German. And she wrote Memoirs of a Polar Bear in the German, and it's been translated. I forget by who. It's been translated by Susan Bernofsky. This book is a story of three polar bears, three generations of polar bears, and we look at the mother, the grandmother polar bear, and the baby polar bear. So the grandmother is somebody who writes a novel, and she writes a novel quite accidentally, which turns out to become a bestseller, and it's actually an autobiography. So she writes a memoir, and she loves the process of writing. So the first part of the book is about that. The second part is about her daughter, who ends up going to East Berlin, where she joins the circus as a dancer, and she's a polar bear as well. Now, the third one is about Kuntz, which I think is a polar bear that probably existed in real life in the East Berlin Zoo. And this is the third part chronicles the experiences of the polar bear in the zoo and how it becomes very close, how he becomes very close with his trainer, and they develop a bond that is very lovely and all of that. So that's what Memoirs of a Polar Bear is, and I'm really excited to experience this book. This book is a book that I'm sure a lot of you have already read, and this is The Hunger Games Book 1 by Suzanne Collins. I haven't read this yet, guys. Let's take a minute to acknowledge that I haven't read any of the Hunger Games books yet. So I am bound to pick it up before the end of the year is what I've decided. I am planning to do that. And so this is about Katniss Everdeen, who is a girl who's around 16 years old. This is actually young adult fiction, and it was made into a motion picture that I haven't watched yet. I'm sure a few of you watching have already seen the movie and read the book. I'm eager to know what you thought in the comments down below. Spoiler-free comments only, please. Thank you. So this is about Katniss Everdeen, who ends up participating in the Hunger Games in a North America that is set in the distant future. It's post-apocalyptic, science fiction-y novel. It's totally up my street. And since so many of you recommended this to me because I like post-apocalyptic fiction, I am very excited to be adding this to my upcoming TBR. So basically, she ends up going and participating in the Hunger Games, which is a set of games that are that happen on an annual basis, and that's how people survive. And usually one of them, it'll be a boy and one of them will be a girl, and they have to fight against each other to the death. And this is a televised universal television production. So that's how they kind of survive. And it's all about her thoughts and experiences being a part of the Hunger Games, and how she's not really been somebody who's found survival difficult. So she's well positioned to take on the Hunger Games challenge. But I'm just eager to see what else this explores. And I'll be reporting back once I've read this. The next book is another book that is pretty old. It was published some time back, but I've always had this on my TBR somewhere at the back of my mind that I wanted to read The Idiot by Elif Batuman. So Elif Batuman is a New York-born author. So she's American, but she has Turkish roots. Her parents are Turkish immigrants. She basically writes a coming-of-age story, a Bill Dunn's romance, so to speak. In this, it's about the experiences of a upcoming budding writer, but she doesn't know she has potential to be a writer, and how she is in Harvard and she is studying subjects she had never heard of before, like linguistics. And she is also making friends with other individuals, people from Serbia, people from Hungary, and then she gets quite close to them. It's about, growing up. This is set in 1995 when email correspondence was relatively new, and the author does a lot of that. The main character, Celine, does a lot of email correspondences with these two friends that she makes. And then she goes on a trip to Paris, pursuing her first love and all of that. And it's a mathematics student who is in a class that's much higher. And apparently this is a semi-autobiographical novel, so the author puts a bit of her own experiences in it. And I'm always up for something like this. So I'm really excited to read this, and I will report back. So those are the 5 books that I picked up, and I'm going to be adding to the shelves behind me. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Have you read any of these 5 books?